Chilling tales for dark nights.
Want to make sure you never miss a Chilling Tales for Dark Nights video again? Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to turn on notifications.
Little dead Nancy, sitting on the bench, one eye long and one eye gone. Little dead Nancy, my friend lies dead. Come along, join me. Let's go see Garth together. Doesn't nearly flow off the tongue nearly so well as the first verse, but it gets the point across. We waited in the woods for a long time, she and I. It was cold out at night, but it wasn't colder than we were. It was strange not seeing my breath on every exhale, but I wasn't bored. We had a lot of time to talk. The first instinct was to move in the minute we got there, but Nancy made it known that we needed to wait. We needed to make sure we could get them all in one fell swoop. So we waited for 3 days, until the storm came. It was a doozy. The rain came down in sheets. Hail smacked against the windows of the cabin where the boys were laying low, and lightning lit up the sky. The roads were certainly going to be washed out. Now was the time. The first victim was Rick. He went on the back porch to smoke. Nancy told me he was Garth's best friend. His family was the one that owned the cabin. Rick was somewhat nice, but he didn't care that his best friend was a murderer. That's not the sign of a good person. He was smoking a blunt on the back porch, watching the rain. Back was turned towards me. He never saw us coming. Too bad he didn't go for a haircut before this. It probably would have stopped us from grabbing him by the hair and dragging him off the porch. The cabin itself was surrounded by a drop-off into a steep ravine. He took one too many steps back and took a tumble on down. When we caught up to him, he was pretty fucked up. A sharp piece of bone was jutting out of his thigh, and he kept bitching about how his back hurt. I flicked the knife around in the air, and Rick's eyes went so wide I thought they might pop out. Wait, please don't do it! I didn't give him a chance to beg for his life. We had a lot of time to sharpen the knife. I plunged it into his chest as many times as Garth stabbed Leanne. The rain washed the blood down the hill as we got back up. Luckily for us, his keys were on his belt. Said keys were now ours. I hiked back up the hill and got to the cabin. Luckily, no one seemed to be missing Rick. They were partying it up. Guess they figured the heat was finally dying down. Soon they'd go home. No, they wouldn't. They'd never leave this cabin. Liam was digging through the fridge for more munchies. Liam was the most loyal to Garth. It was his idea to go into hiding while things died down. His sense of humor was rape jokes and those prank videos where you grope or molest innocent women. Thankfully, he also didn't realize the footsteps behind him weren't those of his friends. He asked me when we were going to make another beer run. It was quick, that deep slash across the throat, but I didn't want him to scream. It wasn't as quiet as I thought it would be, though. Liam thrashed about with a gurgle and his neck sprayed blood everywhere. He fell back with a crash, and I heard someone yell from the living room, asking if Liam was okay. I hooked my arms under Liam's armpits and dragged him out the back door. He was nearly done for by the time I managed to get him partway down the hill. I finished him off the same way I finished off Rick, and then I kicked his body the rest of the way down. I slipped around front. I could hear the horrified commotion coming from the kitchen. But I imagined seeing a bloody kitchen would make anyone lose their shit. I listened in to the conversation from the living room for a while, enjoying their futile attempts to call 911. Their signal was already shit during the clear weather. It was non-existent during the storm. One of them, Cody, turned his head to the kitchen entryway and made eye contact with me. His jaw dropped when he saw me standing there in blood-stained clothing and holding a knife. I made sure to dive away by the time he got everyone else to look over. I hid in the bedroom as they split up to find the psycho in their house. I crawled under the bed and waited for my moment. My luck, Cody was the one who made it into the bedroom. Cody once filmed a girl being sexually assaulted at a party when she was passed out drunk. Cody thought he didn't do anything wrong because he never laid a finger on her. I stabbed him in the foot when he approached the bed. He screeched as I pulled myself out from underneath, grinning before I stabbed him, well, in the dick. In my defense, I was still kneeling, and it was all I could really reach. You can't say he didn't totally deserve it either. His screams reached a whole new octave as I pulled the knife back out. I couldn't take the time to savor it, though. I had a job to do, and no doubt the final 2 guys in the house heard that scream. I drove the knife into his chest and pierced his heart, and that was all she wrote. Garth and his final breathing friend, Xavier, broke into the bedroom just as the knife went in the 23rd time. Panting, I got to my feet. I could feel my clothes becoming crusty with blood, not to mention my hair. Neither man looked at me with recognition in his eyes. I cocked my head to the side and smiled. "So, who's next?" I asked. Garth never stopped being a coward. He shoved Xavier forward and bolted. I heard him run up the stairs and slam the door behind him. "Garth, you dick!" Xavier turned to run after him, but stopped when my thrown knife embedded itself in his back. This was an unfortunate mistake on my part. By throwing the knife, I lost my weapon, and the human filled with adrenaline will do whatever it can to survive. Xavier pulled the knife out of his back and came at me with it, bellowing like a bull and nearly taking my head off. I ducked and dodged and got slashed across the chest and face. It hurt like hell, but what really hurt is when he managed to get me in the eye. I screamed in rage, clutching my bleeding face, Xavier smiling like an idiot as he thought he had the upper hand. Then I did us both a favor and popped that eye out of my skull. Xavier pissed his pants at the sight, me raising that gore-covered eyeball up to stare at the creep's face. You remember how Cody filmed a girl being assaulted? Xavier was one of the assaulters. Is it really rape if she's unconscious? Well, obviously yes, but not in Xavier's mind. The moment of shock was all I needed to charge and chomp my teeth right into Xavier's throat. Not a graceful kill, but I was out of options. And hey, it worked. He couldn't even scream. He dropped the knife. I picked it up, and in just a little while there were 23 holes in his chest. Xavier was a tough one, but I still won. I was on the final stretch. One more and Leanne would be able to rest in peace. I kicked open the door and found Garth cowering in the corner. He screamed as I walked in, my popped-out eyeball bouncing off my cheek as I crouched in front of him. "What do you want? Just leave me alone! I didn't do anything wrong!" he shouted at me. I obviously laughed, because that was far from true. "You don't remember the girl you stabbed in the back?" I asked. "You don't remember the girl you stabbed before you turned on her friend and butchered her?" Now he remembered. He whimpered as his back pressed against the wall. There was nowhere for him to go. "You? How did—" "Well, it's not that girl either. Well, kind of not." I hummed the tune of an oh-so-familiar schoolyard chant, and Garth remembered. All the kids that went to my school do. My legend dates back to 1973, the same year the school was built. Back then, I was nothing, but the kids named me. The swing set became hallowed ground, or should I say, desecrated ground. Say my prayer next to the red swing, and there I'll appear for you. I'll offer you power, but I always ask for something in return. Garth never said the chant. He never went near my swing. Swings were for girls, after all, and to be a girl was to be weak in his mind. It was clear that he was the weak one, begging for his life, offering me anything I wanted if I spared him his life. But I had what I wanted. I had a body, and I had the souls of 4 sinful bastards. And now I would have 5. Garth died in exactly the same way Leanne did. I made sure each stab would match the marks left on hers perfectly. Then I added one more. One more for the girl whose body I was possessing. Did you pick up where I stopped referring to myself as we and us? Well, my dear host might have been angry about the death of her best friend, but the moment she raised the knife in the air to stab Rick, she realized she didn't have what it takes. So, I decided to take over and handle it from there. Little dead Nancy had to tell you this story of glorious and ever so satisfying revenge that you all wanted to hear. I've dealt with the bodies, the evidence. They'll never be found. Or maybe they will, years and years and years from now. But they'll be nothing but John Does. Their families will never have peace. They don't deserve it. My host still sleeps, but I put her eye back in her head. It'll be blind for the rest of her days, but that's a minor inconvenience considering I could take up permanent residence if I wanted to. And believe me, it was something I considered. But I'll be back on my bench near the swings by tonight, my host in control of her body once more. I'd miss the kids too much. My youthful congregation spreading the legend of little dead Nancy. The dead little girl on the swing set. Just remember, my friends, there's never been a dead little girl on the playground. But a demon, on the other hand.
Chilling tales for dark nights.